Section 5.3, using symbols to add fractions. In Section 5.1, we used shapes and objects cut into different pieces to help us to add fractions. And this time we're going to use symbols, multiplication, adding, subtracting, basically doing it without shapes. First things first, you have to find a common denominator or a common number to cut your shape into, like we did for Section 5.1. When you have to find a common denominator, it means that the bottom number is the same. If we look at the two fractions that we've decided to add here, we've been given to add 1/2 and 3/8. Now, 2 for a denominator and 8 for a denominator, those aren't the same numbers, and it's really hard to add two shapes together with different denominators if you don't have other shapes, if you're just doing it with your symbols, multiplication and so on. So to use a 1/2 and a 3/8, one of the ways to do it is trial and error. You can try a couple of different denominators or possible denominators until you find one that they have in common. This one's fairly straightforward because we know that 8 is an even number and that 2 goes into all even numbers. So we need to find a way to make 2 into 8. And the way to make 2 into 8 is to multiply by 4. 2 times 4 is 8. But what we do to the bottom, we have to do to the top, a lot like in algebra, which we do to one side of the equation, we have to do to the other. To make our fraction equivalent to 1/2, if we multiply the bottom by 4, we have to multiply the top by 4 as well, which will give us a new equation or a new fraction, 4/8 plus 3/8. Both fractions now have a common denominator, so it's much easier to add them. 1 times 4 is 4. 2 times 4 is 8. We don't have to change the 3/8 because now they're both 8. In this case, 4 plus 3 is 7. The 8's, because both objects are still cut into 8 pieces, we keep the denominator the same. The only thing we add are the numerators or the top numbers. So that becomes 4/8 plus 3/8 becomes 7/8. It's a beautiful 8, isn't it? Okay, so that's an example where the numerators are fairly simple to put into the same, the denominators, the 2 and the 8, are fairly simple to make the same. 2 is a factor of 8, or 8 is a multiple of 2. It was really easy to find that. The next example is not necessarily trial and error, where the way to find a common denominator is to multiply the denominators by multiply both numbers in a fraction by the other denominator. So I have 2/3 plus 4/7. 2/3 plus 4/7. Now, right away, we know that 3 doesn't go into 7 because 7 is a prime number. The only numbers that go into 7 are 1 and 7. So I can't just multiply 3 by something to make 7. I'm going to have to find a number different than both of them. And a really fast way to do that is to multiply the entire fraction, the top and the bottom, by whatever the denominator is. So I would multiply 2 by 7, and I would multiply 3 by 7. And on the opposite side, I would multiply the top, or the numerator, and the bottom, the denominator, by 3. 4 times 3 and 7 times 3. So my new equation would be 2 times 7 is 14, 4 times 3 is 12, and we're adding that. Both have a new denominator of 21. 3 times 7 is 21, 7 times 3 is 21. This way, it's a very fast way to find what your denominator is, what your common denominator could be. Both 21. So 14 and 12, if we add those together, it equals 26/21. Now that's called an improper fraction. Anytime the top number, or the numerator, is bigger than the bottom number, or the denominator, it's an improper fraction. You can leave it as an improper fraction. In this case, it can't be made any smaller than it is right now. No number goes into both 26 and 21 other than 1. So we're going to make it into a mixed number. And a mixed number is just that. It's a mixed number where you've got one whole number, or a whole number, pardon me, not one whole number, but a whole number, and a fraction that goes with it. So you've got a whole number and a fraction, making it mixed together. So this case, what we've done, the object is still cut into 21 pieces. So our denominator is still going to stay at 21. There are 21 21s in a whole. So if I take 21 from the 26 to make my whole, that leaves me with 5 on top for my numerator. So 26 over 21, an improper fraction, when it's made into a whole number, becomes 1 and 5/21. Now, because 5 and 21 don't have any common factors between them, just 1, this can't be made any smaller. 2/3 plus 4/7, when you add them together, you get 26/21, or 1 and 5/21. So your practice question, you're using either technique, the first one, where you find a common denominator by changing one of them, or multiplying the denominators together. Make sure both fractions have a common denominator, and then add the fractions below. If your answer is an improper fraction, change it into a mixed number. And make sure the fraction in the end, whether it be a mixed number or an improper fraction, is in its lowest possible form. So 4/6 plus 3/5. What does it equal? You'll notice that both denominators are different. You're going to have to find a way to find a common denominator before you add them, and you'll get an answer. If it is an improper fraction, change it to a mixed number.